Good afternoon. Welcome to the Lethbridge City Council meeting for Tuesday, February the 9th, 2021. I apologize for any delay. The City of Lethbridge acknowledges that we are gathered on the lands of the Blackfoot people of the Canadian Plains and pays respect to the Blackfoot people, past, present, and future, while recognizing and respecting their cultural heritage, beliefs, and relationship to the land. The City of Lethbridge is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. We'll now move on to bouquets. Councillor Morrow?
Nothing, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Croson?
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. I'd be remiss in this freezing cold weather not to put a bouquet out to all the city workers and to everyone else who is actually having to work outside in this weather and keep everything going at this time. Thank you all for the work you're doing. I had a great comment from one of my neighbors about city staff who came and helped them get their pipes working again in their house when they froze. And so just a thank you again to the city staff who work so hard when we're all warm in our homes. Thank you.
Thank you for making that comment. Acting Mayor Higgin?
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. Yes, I do. I just want to give a shout out to all of those that will be participating in the Polar Bear Plunge for Special Olympics this coming Friday here in Lethbridge. Just a little background is the Polar Bear Plunge has brought in just over $1 million here in Alberta for an incredible cause. And I looked at the temperature. I know myself, the team that I'm involved with is going to be jumping in a very cold ice pool here this coming Friday. And just a shout out to everybody else that's doing that. We've raised quite a bit of funds here in Lethbridge over the years, and it's no different this year. We're on the way to being similar to what was been over the past few years. So again, a shout out to this minus 40 with wind chill jump this Friday to all of those.
Thank you. Good luck. Councillor Parker?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate that. Just want to say, glad everyone's staying nice and warm. I just want to make note, during the finance budget deliberations, we were voting on numerous resolutions during the budget, making recommendations for council. And at that time, as we were going through all the resolutions, there was one in regards to administrative salary. Even though administrative salary wasn't increased in any way, I should have removed myself at that time. And I was later notified that it's probably best that you remove that. So I did make a mistake at that time. And then when it did come to council, at the last council meeting of December, I had an opportunity and I made a point of removing myself and asking for that part of administrative salary, which was a 0% increase. I asked for it to be removed out of the official resolution, voted on separately. And thanks to yourself, Mr. Mayor, you did have it voted on separately. And I do believe, Madam City Clerk, I removed myself when council made the final ratification on the finance deliberations. Am I correct to that, Madam City Clerk? I just want to make sure. Perfect. And if any citizen has an issue with that at all, feel free to take the proper course, but I just want to make sure that it was known. I know that it's out there on social media through one person but I did rectify it, and I'm just glad. I just wanted to be known. Since instead of someone else telling my story, I like myself to tell the story. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So noted. Thank you. Deputy Mayor Miyashiro?
I'd just like to follow up on Acting Mayor Higgins' comments about the Polar Bear Plunge and to thank him from the bottom of my heart for not inviting me this year.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Campbell?
Thank you. Just if you're not doing the Polar Bear Plunge, maybe you could just plunge into your seat and read this book on the city of Lethbridge that was just released by a local kid, a young fella too, Ryan. And I'm sorry if I'm getting his name wrong. Yuda Welligan. Really excellent book on the history of Lethbridge. Just if you get the chance, check him out online. Thank you.
Great contribution. Councillor Carlson.
Thanks, Mayor Spearman. Just a shout out to Nika Yuko Gardens for their Winter Light Festival. They did end the season, I think January 31st was the last day that folks were able to go out. Tried some new things, a new exciting sponsor. What I really enjoyed was the fact that so many people came down to the gardens and came by the new construction that's going on out front of there, called me, emailed me about it, and I got to talk about that project, and people were very excited. So a big shout out to Nika Yuko for the Winter Light Festival. Also, if I can, Your Worship, just a quick PSA. While we're in this polar vortex cold snap, I know a lot of homes have switched to high efficiency furnaces. They have issues during temperatures of this this depth, or they can have issues. I just want to remind everyone, I've heard of a couple folks in town that have had their intake valves freeze up, frost over. It can be very serious. So just a reminder to folks to check those things around your house. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Kaufman.
Nothing, Mayor Spearman. Thank you.
Okay. I'd like to give a bouquet to everyone who's doing their best to keep people in our city safe during COVID. It's important to remind people it's in order to get businesses open. We've heard from the Government of Alberta there's gradual opening this week. It's an important week for Lethbridge businesses. Those in the restaurant business are finally open again. Those conducting personal training at gyms will be able to do that. Let's continue to do the best we can as a city to keep each other safe and keep our businesses open. Do everything we can to respect the public health orders and make sure that our city is seen as a shining example of a way to keep others safe rather than putting others at risk. So my bouquet goes out to all those who are supporting the public health orders and doing the best they can to keep businesses open in the city of Lethbridge. Thank you. And with that, we'll do the roll call.
Councillor Carlson.
Present.
Councillor Kaufman.
Present.
Councillor Croson.
Good afternoon.
Councillor Morrow.
Yeah.
Councillor Parker.
Yep.
Acting Mayor Hagan.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Miyashiro.
Here.
Mayor Spearman.
Present.
Councillor Campbell.
Present.
And we have Councillor Parker in chamber. We have Acting Mayor Hagan in chamber and Mayor Spearman in chamber. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, if we can move on to the adoption of the agenda. Okay, consent agenda first. That's all right. I have a resolution from Deputy Mayor Miyashiro. The consent agenda. Be it resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of City Council held on Tuesday, January the 26th, 2021 be approved, and that the Mayor and the City Clerk be authorized to sign the same. And further be it resolved that City Council receive for information the following reports. The status of directed resolutions for February 9th, 2021, the Lethbridge Public Library Board bylaws, and the inquiry and response re Brewery Gardens parking lot. And further be it resolved that City Council give first reading to the following bylaws. Bylaw 6265, Municipal Development Plan, and Bylaw 6267, Land Use Amendment re 110 13th Street South. Deputy Mayor Miyashiro?
Thank you very
Mr.
much,
Mayor.
Mayor Spearman.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, point of, if I may, and I don't know if this is the right time, I'd like to ask that first reading for bylaw 6267 be voted on separately, please.
Okay, motion to divide.
Thank you.
Okay, is there a seconder?
Councillor Kaufman.
Okay, Councillor Kaufman. Okay, thank you. All in favor of division? Any opposed?
I am.
Okay, that carries 8-1. So we will have bylaw 6267 voted on separately. Okay, so Councillor Miyashiro, the consent agenda all the way down to 6265.
So, Mayor, thank you, Mayor Spearman. There were a number of resolutions, the status of director resolutions that I hope Council has read and looked at. Many of them relate to our CIP process. Also, a question I have about 2.5, the Municipal Development Plan public hearings for the week of March the 5th will be will these be full day hearings, or will there be a schedule of hearings for each day?
I'll ask our
I'd
city
ask
manager.
Mr. Hawkins or Ms. Gearing to weigh in on that, please.
Yeah, so council will recall that, yeah, we set aside the first week of March to have upwards of five days of public hearings to deal with the municipal development plan. It is structured, and communications gone out to various stakeholders about which sections will be debated on which days. In Maureen's absence, actually, Byron Bazunas is her stand-in today, and he's happy to just provide a little more detail about how the hearings will be structured that week. Byron?
Sure. So the hearings will be structured to divide the document up into 5 parts, 1 part over each day, and they are scheduled for the evening. So I believe it's 4 to 8 o'clock in the evening is what the timing is. The first thing that we'll consider, or that we're proposing, is to look at chapters or sections 1 through 4, which is the background and community profile, plus the local economy policies. On March 2nd, we will look at section 5, the policy section, and we'll specifically look at arts and culture and heritage policies, community well-being policies, and relationship policies. Wednesday the 3rd, we will be looking at places, housing, and housing policies, those 2 sections. And then on the 4th, we will do the last policy sections, transportation, utilities, and servicing policies. And then the final day has environmental policies, and then the last 2 parts of the document, implementation section and the appendices, as well as giving an opportunity to review or have the public come in and talk to any of those things that maybe they missed out on earlier in the week. So this gives us a structured way of working through the entire document. It is not a small undertaking, and it has great importance because we haven't reviewed the MDP for 10 years, so that one carried us forward. This one is an update of that, and it will carry us forward for potentially 3 or 4 councils into the future next. So we need to spend an appropriate amount of time.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Carlson?
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. First, apologies to our guest. Usually we're a lot more on time and don't have as many questions on the consent agenda. Through you, your worship, to city manager or designate, the public hearings, 6 days of them, I think it is, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, 5 days of them. Those are statutory. If councillors miss part of a day or all of one day due to conflicts in that week, does that mean we are unable to hear fully the public hearing and then unable to vote? I'm just not sure. I don't recall us ever having a 5-day public hearing. And I know that past we've been counseled if we miss a portion, we are out of the room. So I'm just wondering how that's going to work, considering this isn't even in our schedules.
Mr. Lowen, could you please answer?
It's Sherry who's joined us. Mr. Lowen had to step out. And does anybody else know if this is a statutory requirement, either Sherry or otherwise?
Yeah, it's Sherry here. So if a councillor misses all of the public hearing, you must abstain from voting on the bylaw. You may abstain if you miss only a part of the public hearing. So I would say that it would depend on how substantial a portion of the public meeting or the public hearing that you miss.
Okay.
We might need more advice before the first week in March.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Croson?
And can we get this in our schedule ASAP, please?
My question was just what Councillor Carlson asked. The faster we can get this in our schedule, the more guarantee you have council being there.
Okay, thank you.
So right now, we're looking at if you miss part of it, then you actually can't sit for the rest of it? Is that kind of what we just heard? I'm just trying to get clarity here.
Hi, it's Sherry again. The MGA doesn't specify the proportion of a public hearing that there's no line that you cross and then you're for sure you can't vote on the matter. It's just, I think it's a judgment call. It's if you miss a substantial portion of the meeting, then you may abstain. But if you miss the entire public hearing, you must abstain.
Thank you. I was thinking my colleague was asking for a loophole, but maybe not.
Yes, I have an hour I need to miss.
Anyway, if there's no other questions, then Mayor, I'll call the question on the consent agenda.
Okay, there are no other questions. Questions been called. All in favor? Any opposed? There are none. Now we'll deal with bylaw 6267. Land use amendment re 110 13th Street South. So I would assume Councillor Deputy Mayor Miyashiro is bringing that forward as well. It's just separated. Are there any questions?
Certainly, it's just first reading to bring back the land use change to from general commercial to direct control for the parcel in question.
Any further questions from councillors? I don't see any.
Then I would call the question for first reading.
Question's been called for first reading. All in favor? Any opposed?
Yes, Joe.
Okay, we'll do a roll call on that.
Councillor Kaufman.
In favor?
Councillor Croson.
In favor.
Councillor Morrow.
Opposed?
Councillor Parker.
Opposed.
Acting Mayor Higgin.
Opposed.
Mayor Shiro.
In favor?
Mayor Spearman.
In favor?
Campbell.
In favor.
Councillor Carlson.
In favor.
Carried 6-3.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, it's Joe
Yes,
again.
go ahead.
I see some beautiful faces on my screen, but there's one that I don't recognize. It's a Craig S.
He was our guest. He was going to make the presentation.
Okay, thank you. I just was hoping he was going to be introduced, but thank you.
Yeah. That was coming at when we get that far into the resolution, into the agenda. Okay. Next, we have the adoption of the agenda from Acting Mayor Higgin. That the agenda of the regular meeting of City Council on February the 9th, 2021 be adopted, as presented, including all communications as submitted by the City Clerk.
Question.
Question's been called.
There's one addition to the agenda, if I may.
Okay, go ahead.
Item 10.4, it's the in-camera matter, boards, commissions, and committee matter, and a verbal. Thank you.
Okay. So that resolution would change to that the agenda of the regular City Council of February 9th, 2021 be adopted as amended.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. Call for the vote.
Okay. All in favor? Any opposed? There are none. Okay, we'll now move on to presentations. I see that Mayor Snodgrass is here. Welcome, Mayor Craig Snodgrass from the town of High River. Still here, so Mr. Snodgrass, Mayor Snodgrass, would you like to proceed?
I've been there, so I know how these meetings can go sometimes, so no problem at all. So I won't take very long because I do have to run, but even in regards to yesterday's announcement with reinstating the coal policy, There is still a number of questions that we have for the government, and there's still a number of asks that we have. So part of the letter that you folks have did deal with the reinstatement of the coal policy. So that has been done, which is great, but didn't fix everything by any means. The other ask that we still have that we would like your support on is the stop work order on all existing exploration, because that's what's causing the damage back there right now. That's irreparable damage, and we'd like the government to get that done. I know there's legalities and everything else that come into play, but the more pressure we can put on them and let them know that Albertans do want to see a stop to that. I have been in contact yesterday following the announcement. They contacted me to start piecing together what the public consultation process would look like. So that's the other piece that I think is very important to Lethbridge, is concerning the old man water allocation amendments that are being proposed to provide water to all these coal companies so they can operate their mines. But I think there's a lot of questions. I don't know a lot about it as to what it says. I've got some documents that I think you folks have. But that's a big one that Lethbridge could do, because it directly affects you guys, doesn't affect us at all up here. But we'd sure like to see you guys weighing in on this, and I will absolutely bring anything to my council and look for support. I've got a great council that's all in on all this stuff. So, but even with me, there's a couple boundaries I need to be aware of, right? So, but I'll leave it at that, and if there's any questions, I can take questions for a couple of minutes, and then I'll have to run. Thanks, Mayor Spearman.
Questions for Mayor Snodgrass? Councillor Carlson.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass, not just for joining us today, but you and your council's advocacy and passion on this file to date. I really do appreciate it, as do many of our constituents. They've been following along. You must have gotten lots of Twitter and Facebook followers out of this.
Busy.
Quick question, because we have made some progress, which is excellent, but the stop work orders, are those on particular projects or projects that were approved in a particular timeline, perhaps? Do you have that information at hand?
Yeah, no, and that's a great one, Councillor Carlson. We have asked for a stop work order on all exploration right now, on the eastern slopes, period, because it's confusing when you get into all the different ones and when they were approved, prior to the announcement of the rescission to after the rescission, how fast they were done through the AER. Some of those approvals were done same day. Coal company applied and received the approval the same day. So that's why we're saying just stop. Let's reset and go ahead. Now, I understand the legalities with the government doing that they would be facing payouts and possible lawsuits and everything else. But, I've made it clear to the Minister Savage, that we have to stop this and get it rewound. And if there's payouts that need to be done, like as a taxpayer here, and as important as the eastern slopes are and our water is, let's just pay the money if needed and let's get things stopped. But I also understand where they're at. So I'm very appreciative of the amount we got done yesterday, and we'll continue to talk and work forward on this.
Okay, thank you for that. Question for the movers, I believe it's Deputy Mayor Miyashiro and Councillor Croson. Since things have changed, are there some amendments that you have prepared?
There are.
Okay.
Yes, there are.
Thank you.
Any further questions for Mayor Snodgrass? Okay, Councillor Croson.
Thank you, Mayor, for joining us and for the information you have provided. The public consultation, the form it takes is going to be, as you said, absolutely vital. And one of the concerns we have is that it'll get shunted over to AER. and follow their rules, which of course incredibly limits who actually has a say and wouldn't give the city of Lethbridge any opportunity. From your conversation yesterday, did you get any sense of what type of public consultation and who would be guiding it, whether it be the province itself or AER?
Well, I've made it very clear, it cannot be the government of Alberta and it cannot be industry, which is the AER. It has to be third party, it has to be separate, it has to be fair, it can't be weighed one way or the other. And that is extremely important as to who's doing this and how it's being done. So I've made my points very clear and I'm interested as to where they're going. And I've got a couple other individuals. This isn't just me talking to them. I said, I'm no expert on this stuff by any means. So I've got a couple of very, very good people that are well versed in this. Kevin Van Degem is one of them that we all know. Those are the kinds of people that need to be involved in this, that are well versed in this to decide who's doing it, right?
The other question I have, has there been any talk with the province that you know regarding the mine financial security program? And if you are going to go ahead, make sure there's money in that, because we're all going to be coming after it for reclamation.
Yeah, it's orphan wells again, right?
Of course.
It's absolutely what it is. And there's a massive shortfall in that fund. I don't know all the details about it, but I do know that it's billions of dollars short. So, you know, already up in Hinton, they're scrambling with the one closure up there that the company has walked away from reclamation. So this isn't historic. Like, it's not like 40 years ago that was done. It's like last Thursday, right? So nothing's changed. You got to watch these guys.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Deputy Mayor Miyashiro?
No, answered.
Okay, further questions? I see no further questions. We did get your email summarizing your 2 points. I've passed that on to the city clerk.
Okay.
So I'd like to thank you for your time today, Mayor Snodgrass, and thank you for your leadership in moving this issue forward. You've made great progress already, and we're fully aware that the battle's not over. Thank you.
Well, we're all in it together, and this has been a big move to see where it's restored my faith in Alberta and how we do resource development, right? That there are boundaries, and the eastern slopes are pretty precious to us, so you're not going to get away with sneaky stuff. So appreciate it. I'm glad you guys are on board and helping us through this. So rock and roll. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
So we have a motion by Mayor Spearman. The reinstatement of the 1976 coal development policy. Be it resolved that City Council receive this presentation as information, and further be it resolved that Mayor Snodgrass be thanked for this presentation. Mayor Spearman.
Okay, I think Mayor Snodgrass has been a leader in certainly rallying people to the concerns around coal development, that they be adequately vetted and that there be a proper consultation process. Did have a small win yesterday with the reinstatement of the 1976 coal policy, which as of last week was not going to be reintroduced, and yesterday morning was reintroduced, so that's tremendous. But Council will move forward later this afternoon with a discussion of an official business resolution to clarify the City of Lethbridge's process and our views. But at this time, I would like to thank Mayor Snodgrass for being available and making some suggestions for 2 additional things we might consider.
Okay, any questions from council? Mayor Spearman, was that your close?
Yeah, that's my open and close. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
Is there any debate? I see none. I'll call the question. Anyone opposed? I see none. That is carried unanimously.
Thank you. We'll now move on to the official business resolution. So we have an official business resolution sponsored by Deputy Mayor Miyashiro and Councillor Croson. Coal mining on the eastern slopes of the Rockies. whereas Lethbridge is downstream from the proposed mining site and gets its water from the Oldman River, whereas these proposed projects have the potential of affecting the water in the entire Oldman watershed, and whereas Lethbridge's and Southern Alberta's economy and jobs may be impacted long-term if water quality issues affect the quality of our irrigation water, and the reputation of our agri-food processing hubs may be damaged for years. And whereas Lethbridge and surrounding communities obtain their drinking water from the Oldman River and do not have the ability, as other communities affected by selenium pollution do, of digging a new well or finding a new source of water, and whereas there is at present little scientific information on how to address selenium at the water treatment level, and whereas there are growing concerns among other Southern Alberta communities, therefore be it resolved that City Council support other communities in their efforts and direct the Mayor to write a letter to Premier Kenney, including the Ministers of Environment and Energy, asking the province to, 1, reverse the rescindment of the 1976 coal development policy for Alberta. 2, bring forward a comprehensive public consultation on the proposed changes to the 1976 policy. And 3, complete a thorough and complete analysis of potential watershed impacts. Deputy Mayor Miyashiro, would you like to initiate? I think you have to unmute.
Thank you very much, Mayor Spearman. So I think I will defer to Councillor Croson because I know she does have some amendments she'd like to bring forward to this OBR.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Mayor Spearman. I will kind of just give the background, and then I will talk about some of the things. Of course, Section 1, reversing the rescindment. Thank you very much to the province for that one, but we'll continue from there. It's great to hear that the policy is back, at least temporarily. My colleagues will remember that back in October, time flies, we brought forward a resolution about Grassy Mountain. As we heard from Mayor Snodgrass, not everything is under the 1976 policy. The resolution about Grassy Mountain earlier, that final decision is actually outside anything about this policy, and the final decision will be made by the Federal Minister of the Environment, who is Minister Wilkinson at this time. And if people are concerned about Grassy Mountain, it's actually Minister Wilkinson who you would need to contact, and that's something that we at Council may need to consider as well. Now, Grassy Mountain is planning to use the TEX technology, RE selenium, and it is the selenium question that we have a lot of issues about, and other projects are also considering using that. Even Environment Canada has questions about TEX modeling. Can that process be scaled up? No one knows, and at this point, no one is quite sure if it can. Will it be effective? Again, no one's sure, and that is incredibly worrying. Not only is water life, but here in Southern Alberta, water is irrigation, it's industry, it's jobs, it's the economy, it's our very existence. And when we're looking at all of these issues around coal, it is about water quality, selenium and other things that might be dumped into our water, and water quantity. There is only so much water in the Oldman Rivershed Basin, and we need it for industry, irrigation, people's very livelihoods, and of course for human existence. It should be a simple thing for the province to agree not to mess up the drinking water of our communities, but also do not destroy the water of the irrigation capital of Canada. This is our livelihood and the livelihood of the entire region that we are looking at. So it's not only whether or not the 1976 policy is back temporarily. We must be concerned about what sort of public engagement will be developed, because that new policy, whatever is created, is absolutely essential. I think every one of us has been part of a misleading survey. Various organizations put them out. They're the ones like, do you like our idea? Do you really like our idea? Do you really, really like our idea? Those are not what we need in this engagement. We have to make sure, as Mayor Snodgrass said earlier, that industry isn't leading this. It cannot be under the AER because they have very limiting legal responsibilities for public engagement. It can't be something led by the province. It has to be something that has much more public engagement as that. I know others are advocating for the completion of the sub-regional plans before the 1976 policy is removed again, and that those would then lead the discussion, and that seems to me a very reasonable approach. We need to work with those who actually know the situation, and we need to make sure that the public engagement is essential. The other thing I brought up earlier in my questions to Mayor Snodgrass, we also need to look at the mine financial security program. if you're going to go ahead with any of this, and that is of course a decision that the province will eventually make, we need to have guarantees that there is going to be money there for the reclamation that might have to happen if any projects go ahead. We do not want another abandoned well program because that is no good for anywhere in the province, anyone here at all. So Lethbridge won't be the dumping ground for companies. We need to make sure that our water is safe, and we need to make sure that our concerns are expressed. So any public consultation needs to make sure that municipalities are involved, along with Indigenous nations, Indigenous groups, along with farmers and ranchers and everyone else. And so that basically is where we're standing. And within that, I know we'll be looking at making some amendments to this, but this is where we are today. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that introduction. Councillor Kaufman.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman, and thank you to the two movers for this motion. I'll happily support it, but I do understand there are amendments coming forward. I'm just wondering if one of them includes, in addition to the first operative clause, to add in the federal Minister of the Environment, Minister Wilkinson.
Did you have a suggestion for how that should be worded?
And the Minister of Environment, Minister Wilkinson. I didn't know if the movers have that included on their list of things that are coming forward. I know there's a suite of amendments. I was just trying to be more efficient with council's time by asking if it was in that as well.
I would accept that as a friendly amendment if my co-mover will agree, because I think that was more of an oversight because he is essential to this process as well.
If that would be accepted as such, I'd appreciate that.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, any further questions? Councillor Carlson.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. Just a quick one. I'm wondering if we could just move forward with the amendments. It doesn't make sense asking a lot of questions if things are going to be amended. I'd rather see the amendments first.
Okay. I submitted 5 amendments at first, and I think 2 others came. Would it be okay to put those 5 on the screen? So they're listed 1 to 6, but number 2 is no change. Could we put the my first proposed amendments on the screen? I sent written copies of the amendments out to councillors ahead of time. Yeah. Okay. Okay, the first amendment is, I think it should be a no-brainer. It's to thank the Government of Alberta for reinstating the 1976 coal policy. Point number 1 is now obsolete as of yesterday. So now that they have reinstated the 1976 coal policy, we can first thank them. The second point in the proposed amendment, the proposed resolution is still valid. Bring forward a comprehensive public consultation process on changes to the 1976 policy. The third one would change to complete a thorough and complete analysis of potential watershed impacts that will result from allocating water to mining operations that could impact the supply of water to existing and future downstream users. So this third one is about supply. The fourth one is complete a thorough and complete analysis of potential water quality impacts from mining operations, including but not limited to higher levels of selenium in the river systems. The fifth one is complete a thorough and complete analysis of the effectiveness of selenium mitigation technologies. And the sixth one is commit to ongoing monitoring and testing for selenium levels in Alberta river systems, establish selenium thresholds for water safety and procedures to cease mining operations when thresholds are exceeded. So we could look at those 5 as one amendment in 5 points, or we could discuss each and every one. What's council's preference?
May I just make a comment?
Sure.
All the things you have mentioned in your, or most of the things you have mentioned in your amendments, to me was under the complete and thorough analysis, because it is about quality, it is about quantity. So I would suggest all the ones that are around water are actually just one amendment to actually be more specific about what number 3 is. That's how I would see it. So that if this passes, that it's actually giving direction in the letter you're writing, going, these are the concerns under that. So I would see it, unless anybody wants to divide, as one slate. All the water ones are all part of one conversation that we're asking the province to have, going, just make sure there's still water for irrigation. That's the quantity, and right, that, you know, like, where's that extra water coming from? And 2, make sure the quality is good. So I see those all as one, if my colleagues agree.
Okay, suggestion is to treat them all as one. Councillor Carlson?
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. I appreciate the sort of fleshing out of the impacts on our water system. We know it's critical. One of the questions I had, in your point number 5, it talks about completing a thorough and complete analysis of the effectiveness of selenium mitigation technologies. And I know even one of our sitting MLAs talked about that there are new selenium removal processes in the works. The price tag for that, I think, also needs to be looked into. If it means $100 million investment in our water treatment plant, who's on the hook for that? Right now, it's the City of Lethbridge taxpayers. And I know the province, or at least some of the MLAs, are saying, oh, don't worry, selenium can be removed. Do we know how or what the price of those upgrades are? I think that needs to be included. That if it's possible, it's going to cost $1 billion, who's footing the bill for that? So is that possibly somewhere to be included about the cost of treatment?
Well, the intention would be that the project's not proceed if
yes.
If selenium couldn't be eliminated at source. There was no, at this point, we hadn't contemplated what the cost would be for downstream removal. The idea is to stop it at the source, because if we can't afford it at the City of Lethbridge, you can bet that a lot of the small communities will not be able to afford it either.
Yeah, and if it's not stopped, sorry, Councillor Crozan?
That might come as an amendment about the mine fund, or the fund that I was talking about. Your concerns might be addressed there.
Okay, thank you.
Deputy Mayor Miyashiro?
No, and thank you. And I think, yeah, Councillor Crozan, I know that you did have an amendment coming about the fund, and that would be over and above what's stated here. Is that correct?
Yes. Going, you know, we'd like you to be able to stop the selenium at all, but if you can't, make sure that fund is there, because money's going to be needed.
Okay, thank you. I'll support these grouped as one.
Thank you. Councillor Campbell.
Thank you. Great bringing these points forward. I just was curious, what kind of who was the consultation, or where did you come up with all of these amendments? And also, is there any chance that we're missing something that we want to include with these amendments?
Well, generally from information that's been released in the last 10 days, so we've learned that there is a plan to divert water from the Old Man watershed. So it's in our interest to know that there's going to be adequate water after that diversion takes place. We've always been concerned about the impact of selenium. So when we first wrote a letter to the joint panel, the main concern was selenium. So we haven't had any information come to City Council directly that says there is a successful technology to mitigate selenium. I know that Tech Resources has been working on one, and they believe they have one, but no one has supplied us with that yet. and it needs to be vetted, excuse me, needs to be vetted independently. So from what I've been reading about the issue, various articles, various news, some of the meetings I've attended, the Minister of Red Tape Reduction attended the Mayors and Reeves meeting last Friday, provided additional information. Based on that, that's what I've developed these, from basically what the unknowns are or the information that still needs to be verified, as far as I know, and that list may not be complete.
Right. Just wanted to make sure that we've covered all of our, all of the things that we need to cover.
There are additional amendments coming, so.
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
Councillor Morrow?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know where to begin here. So this council seems to have a history of challenging and attacking the provincial government for just about anything that they do, and quite frankly, I'm not a big fan of that, because I think we need to work with them. But my questions are, so here we are sending, or hope if this gets approved, with the resolution with all these details in there. And my question is, like, maybe I'll ask it to the city manager, or to you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, maybe both of you. I'd like to hear from both of you. Have we had any consultation with our MLA, or this, I think, has something to do federally as well? So maybe with our MP, because you know what, we're adding in these amendments, and we have one side of the story, and I don't know where you guys are getting all this information from. But wouldn't it be nice, before I put up my hand, I would feel somewhat comfortable if we have information from our MLA, especially Mr. Neudorf, who's with the government, and also maybe from Rachel Harder, our MP, on their take on this and their background. That would make me feel a little bit better. Has that been done by you, Mr. Mayor, or you, the city manager?
I've seen the information that the provincial government has released, and I've seen the responses to emails from citizens by MLA Neudorf, and I can certainly make that information available to council, but none of that information answers the questions that are listed in the amendment.
Mr. City Manager?
Thanks, Councillor Morrow. We've not been directed to conduct any consultation or liaison with the individuals you mentioned, and haven't done so.
So, thank you. So this is serious. Would we not want to talk to our MLA and maybe bring them to a meeting so that we can actually discuss things before we just start sending letters like this to the Premier? I'm concerned that this may not be taken as serious as we hope it's taken. And I does anybody else feel that way? Because I'm not so sure what to think about this. And I'm not saying that this is not a serious matter, but Mr. Mayor, what kind of details or how much involvement have you had in discussing, all the details about selenium and all these things that we're talking about that I'm sorry, I know nothing about? Have you?
Okay, so we did have a presentation. Mr. Kaup was part of it before we submitted the letter to the joint panel. I've been listening to presentations from the Old Man River Water Council. I get to participate in those. They present to the mayors and reeves on a monthly basis. There's abundant information available on mainstream media about this issue, so it's not hard to get information.
No, Mr. Mayor, I think you're missing the point. I understand that I can access information, and we all, I'm sure, have accessed as much information as we can. But I'd like to hear the province's reason why they're doing what they're doing, why they're making the decisions they're making, before I start approving and sending off a letter saying we don't like it. I mean, I just don't think we have the full picture. So what I'm suggesting is, can we postpone this until we have a public meeting with Mr. Neudorf and anybody else to hear their side of the story?
Well, any councillor can make a motion to postpone.
Well, I would like to make the motion to postpone until we meet with provincial government, our MLA, and if we have to, with the minister, and also with, if there's any federal involvement, with our MP, Rachel Harder.
Okay, can that motion please appear on the screen? Meeting with the MLA for Lethbridge East and the MP for Lethbridge.
Question, Mayor Spearman. I don't know if Councillor Morrow would, we do have a sitting MLA, but also our MLA from Lethbridge West, as well as you know, not being the government in power, we do have MP Harder that we'd asked, and she is not obviously the party in power, if you will. And so I think it would be important that both are invited from Lethbridge East and Lethbridge West, if it's at different times or whatever, but I think that communication is important as well.
Absolutely, I agree. Thank you.
Okay. We can add that in, if that's in the spirit, and the mover agrees. Okay. The motion to postpone. City Clerk, is there any debate on a motion to postpone?
Yeah, there's debate.
Okay. Okay, Councillor Morrow, would you like to lead debate?
Well, I think I've already said it. And the other thing I'd like to add is, Mr. Mayor, I know that you indicated that you have a lot of information, and I don't know if you've shared it all with council, but if there's any information that you have that you haven't already shared, I would respectfully ask that you share that with all of council, and hopefully we can set up a time where we can meet with our elected officials ASAP and have a full discussion on this matter. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Councillor Kaufman.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. Is there a date on this? We should be postponing to a date. I recognize we're trying to coordinate 3 schedules plus that of council. Can we at least put a deadline on this as to when it can come back? The second question, then akin to that, would be to the movers if we're on a date timeline on anything in the motion.
Yeah, we also need a seconder as well for the motion. Yeah.
For the purpose of debate, Mayor Spearman.
Acting Mayor Higgin has seconded the motion.
Okay,
and to the mover and the seconder, what's the postponement date? Next meeting?
As soon as it can be done. I can't pick a date because we're involving 3 other people in their schedule. So as sooner the better.
Okay. Any further questions, Councillor Kaufman?
Well, we just need some clarity. I would like to have a date on that. You know, no later than March 31st or something of that nature. But the second part of my question is to the movers, if there's anything that's time sensitive in this letter or the statement.
Councillor Kaufman, when you say the movers, I'm assuming you're talking about Councillor Croson and Deputy Mayor Miyashiro?
That's correct, Councillor Morrow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, they are both in the queue. So, Deputy Mayor Miyashiro, you're next.
Yeah, so I would say that it is timely that we need to get moving on this, because as any time that we wait, there's more development exploration going on in the eastern slopes and in the headwaters of the Oman River. So yes, any time delayed is more time that's spent with the mining exploration in the sensitive areas that we're talking about.
Okay, and did you have another point? You were in the queue as well?
Yeah, sorry. So the question I have is, so I'm unsure about Councilor Morrow, is so what information different do you think we're going to get from our government MLA, and what information would we get from our member of parliament, who hasn't really said anything about this publicly?
Well, that's exactly.
Actually, never said any. Our MP has never said anything about this publicly. So
the only reason I suggested the MP is because I thought I heard somebody say that this also the federal government is involved in decisions like this.
Right.
And so if that's the case, I would like to hear from the federal government, and she's our representative. And I definitely want to hear from our provincial representatives, both of them, as to why they made the decision that they did, why they rescinded the decision that they did, and where we're at, and to just basically tell us what they're doing and why. Because we're hearing the other side of it, and I totally agree with the other side, but I think we should just give a fair chance to the other our MLAs to tell us why the government is doing what they're doing, what their plan is.
All right.
Okay. Councillor Croson?
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. I have no difficulty with the process of a postponement if my colleagues need more information. I appreciate what Deputy Mayor Miyashiro said about, delays will be happening and things will be going on. But this, there is a process that needs to be followed, and I'm fine with having a thorough process. I do take exception, though, with the concept that we expressing the concerns of our residents and the needs of our community are seen as adversarial, because it's not meant to be adversarial. It merely is, this is our perspective, these are our concerns, and we will express it to the province that these are the concerns we see. They will have different concerns. They will come from possibly from a different perspective, but that's not adversarial. That is simply the ways two various forms of government work together to come to a common idea. And so I'm fine with a postponement, because if that's what is needed to have a better process for all of my colleagues, then let's do that.
Councillor Carlson?
Thanks, Mayor Spearman. I'm not sure if we're, you said we were in debate, but it seems to be more questions.
This is a debating postponement, so yeah.
Okay, mine is debate. I like the idea of calling in our MLAs or requesting our MLAs and MP to come and chat with us about their thoughts on this. But I don't think it's a binary either or decision. I think we don't need to postpone this decision in order to have that conversation. Many Albertans are mobilizing now. We've seen time is of the essence, and strength in numbers lends credence. I think it's no surprise that Lethbridge and our region and the folks downstream of us are some of the most impacted by this. For us to be saying, well, we're just going to step aside and let everyone else fight the battle does not make sense. I believe our community is better served by moving forward with this speedily, but that doesn't preclude us. I think Councillor Morrow's idea to chat with our MLAs and MP about this is an excellent one. I think we need to have that conversation, but to me, I don't think there's a need to postpone this decision. Time is of the essence in this. So I won't be supporting the postponement, but I will be supporting the idea of chatting with our MLAs and MP.
Acting Mayor Higgin.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman, and thank you. I think that the main concern that I would have is I don't want this to if it's a time-sensitive issue, I'm concerned with postponing, because of course we've already heard from the movers about water is life, and we know that, and it's extremely important. It is in light of everything we've heard as of late, it seems to be obviously the right thing to do. Let's protect our headwaters. But I do want to get more information as to a better understanding about this. And as long as we can get this done in a fairly quick way, and it would be my hope within a couple weeks, I'm not sure if that is going to be the end-all be-all as far as something happening if we don't get it done within a couple weeks. I know that's a tough one, because if we say March 31st, I'd heard floating around, but I would really like to see it within a couple weeks if possible. But I would really like to hear again from our Alberta leadership as far as the 2 MLAs that we have and our federal MP. So with that, I will support this for more information.
Anyone else? Okay, I think the two are independent. I agree with Councillor Carlson that we could pass the amendments and we could act, and we can also invite our elected representatives to meet with us to get more information. I don't think we have to wait, and I think the information we're requesting is apolitical. I think we're requesting processes be developed, thorough processes, and I don't think there's any reason to wait for additional information, but we can get additional information as we go along. I'm sure we're all going to learn through this journey. As the hearings take place, as more information, it's going to happen over months, maybe years. So if these processes are indeed thorough, let's gather information along the way. But I don't think it holds City Council back from taking a leadership position. So I won't be supporting the postponement. I think it would be great to deal with all of this and all the amendments today. So that's my position. I would ask Councillor Moore to close.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And first of all, I guess I want to make sure that I am totally, as I think it was Councillor Hagan, water is life. And so this to me is very serious. Although I also understand and totally respect the fact that we need to do a better job of working together with our province and the federal government. We've talked about it all the time, that we don't do enough of that. And it kind of baffles me, actually, that we haven't had this discussion with our MLAs. In my opinion, if we would have involved our MLAs earlier on, rather than just coming up with this resolution like we have today, I think that if our MLAs go to the province on our behalf, representing our community and the region, I think that would carry a significant more weight to the province, rather than council and every other council just sending a letter. And the fact that, quite frankly, I don't really know if we've heard, at least I haven't, and maybe the mayor has, I don't know, but we really, and our city manager hasn't, our city administration hasn't. Maybe if we allow the opportunity to have a discussion of something this significant that affects everyone in our community, I mean, this to me is a perfect opportunity where we show, I think, leadership, and we are talking to our MLAs. We are trying to create where we all come on the same, from the same song, on the same song sheet, and that we all have the information, and that we've heard all sides of the story, if that's ever possible. And that's why I'm suggesting that. I don't disagree. I think Councillor Crowson, what you said, Councillor Crowson, was, I agree with you. I couldn't have said it better myself. But I'm just feeling that for us to sit down and pass these resolutions with all these specific details, without, if I was the premier or the minister, I would say to the sitting MLA in our region, if you guys had a discussion with your council, and if they say no, we haven't, that just concerns me. So that's the only reason I'm putting this forward, and hopefully you'll support it. Call for the question.
Okay, I'll ask the clerk to conduct a roll call vote, please.
Councillor Crowson.
Opposed.
Councillor Morrow.
Favor.
Councillor Parker.
Opposed.
Acting Mayor Hagan.
In favor.
Deputy Mayor Miyashiro.
Opposed.
Mayor Spearman.
Opposed?
Councillor Campbell.
Opposed.
Councillor Carlson.
Opposed.
Councillor Kaufman.
Opposed.
The vote's 2-7, that's lost.
Okay, so now we're back to the amendments. The first grouping of the amendments to pass those as a block or consider those as a block. No. Any further discussion on the amendments?
Mr. Mayor, it's Joe.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Morrow.
So I would just like clarification. So we are voting on, I'm looking at the screen. So I see A, B, C. Is there a way we can see all the amendments, please?
So the city clerk has grouped all the water ones in one, and point one is to thank the government for rescinding or reinstating the 1976 coal policy. And then this point three is all the water quality ones grouped into one.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further questions on the first grouping of amendments? On to debate. I think we've had some discussion and debate. I would ask council to approve these. Any debate on these amendments?
Mr. Mayor, once again, it's Joe.
Councilor Morrow, yeah, I just saw your hand.
Just to be clear, so we are now voting on 1, 2, 3, A, B, and C.
As a block, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Any further debate?
Worship, just to clarify, number 2 we're not voting on. Number 2 is the same as it was. So just 1, 3, A, B, and C.
Yeah. Number 2 is as it is already in the motion, yeah. Okay, ready for voting on these amendments? Call the question. All in favor? Are any opposed? Okay, that's unanimous. Okay, the next resolution that was received was from Councillor Kaufman. Can we put that resolution on the screen, please? That amendment on the screen, please.
Councillor Kaufman, was yours just included in the first therefore clause, or was it an amendment? It was a friendly?
Yes, Madam Clerk, I understood it to be a friendly amendment, just the addition of sending the information to the Federal Minister of the Environment. Yes.
So, Mayor Spearman, that one's dealt with.
Okay, I'll ask the movers, Councillors Miyashiro and Croson. Do you accept that as a friendly amendment?
Yes.
That's fine with me.
Okay, it's now on the floor. This is owned by council. Is there any member of council that objects to that? I see none, so it can be included as a friendly amendment. Okay, the next amendment was submitted by Councillor Croson. Could that please be posted on the screen? Going over the borders on the left and right sides on Teams. People watching on Teams can't see the whole motion.
You just have to pin that to the screen and you can see the whole thing. You pin Ryan to the screen.
Okay. Okay, Councillor Croson, you're the mover of this amendment. Please.
Thank you, Mayor. This was just something that, if we're going to be asking the province to review things and look at things, just one more to ask them to take a look at. We've all been on council at times when we passed a resolution and it's come back to us because it didn't do what we intended, or it just wasn't something we thought about later that was a smart idea, or bylaws that needed to be changed, and that's sometimes happens over time. And so this is asking the government to review this program, because this program that they have is a very smart idea. Upfront, companies are supposed to set aside money for reclamation in event that they go bankrupt or something goes wrong, so that the land can be reclaimed. But the problem, of course, is that if the technology doesn't work the way it is expected and selenium gets in, as was mentioned, it's going to need hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars of cleanup. And it's very unlikely, as this program is set up at the present, that that money is going to be there. As well, one of the concerns I've heard is that if you set up a limited financial or limited liability company, then you can actually, a big company can protect themselves, so there's only so much money that the government can go after, and that way there'll never be enough money in this program. And so the companies then insulate themselves, they go back to whichever country they came from, and it is the children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren of Albertans who would be ending up paying for this, as well as municipalities, etc. So this is, you've got this program, as you're reviewing everything else, just take a look at it. Will it do what you think it's actually going to do as you're reviewing other areas? So that's what this amendment would present.
I'll second that.
Okay, so moved by Councillor Croson, seconded by Councillor Miyashiro. Questions, starting with Councillor Carlson.
There's a typo in there too.
And thanks, Mayor Spearman. I didn't actually have a question. I was just going to voice my support for this one, so
okay.
I get out of the queue.
Does anyone have any questions about creating a mine reclamation fund? Is the essence of this motion?
No, reviewing the fund. The fund already exists. This is asking the province
to review it.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Actually, Mayor Spearman,
I see that.
I do have a question there, and maybe Councillor Croson can answer this, because I've been trying to do some work on the MFSP, I think it's called, and some research on it. I can't find, or I couldn't in my cursory look, find what the balance of that fund currently is. I know this was targeted for, I believe, oil sands projects and coal projects. I think those are the only two, but I couldn't find the balances in there. Do we know how well this fund is maintained?
Unfortunately, I couldn't find that information either, and I don't know. And that's one of the difficulties. And one of the reasons I brought forward this amendment going, if this is something that municipalities have to rely on later, hoping a reclamation will be done, etc., I just don't know.
Yeah, because the concern is, I mean, we've seen with abandoned oil and gas wells, it's hundreds of billions of dollars that people have skipped town without paying for, I guess is the impolite way to say it. And so I think this is important, but I can't find anywhere that this fund, even though it exists, is anywhere near what's needed. So I think this is necessary.
Well, and I see it as protecting our municipality now, but also 20, 30, 40 years from now, because if we have an idea that there will be forwarding, like if selenium gets in the water and we have to be the ones who try to get it out, there will be costs.
Just, Mayor Spearman, just one thing is that there's a typo that after environmental issues, it should say are not dealt with, not deal with.
Okay. Thank you. We'll make that adjustment. Okay, I just couldn't see the resolution on the screen, but now I can see it myself, so, okay. Are there any further questions about the resolution and I will read it now that I have it. Okay, this amendment says that council also ask the government, that would be the Alberta government, is that correct? The Alberta government to review the mine financial security program to ensure that it is properly financed to ensure reclamation of any project that may go ahead, so we don't end up with another abandoned well program, and or if the environmental issues are not dealt with in advance, that there is money to do proper cleanup. Okay, any further questions on the resolution? On to debate. Councillor Crowson?
I think this is self-explanatory. Again, it's simply, sharing with the province that this is a concern that we have and asking them to have a look at this program as they're reviewing other areas. They review things consistently as we do, constantly looking at programs, and this is just one that could have a dramatic effect on us if it is not properly financed.
Okay. Any debate on this motion? Councillor Carlson.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. Just again to add my support to this, I think it's paramount that we ask for this. We don't want to put financial burden on future generations. I just want to ensure that it does. In the amendment, it does state that may go ahead, so we don't end up with another abandoned well program. Just want to ensure that the "we" there stands for all Albertans, not just the 9 of us.
Right. So
I am fine with you checking my grammar.
yeah, I think it should say Alberta government, and it should say Albertans don't wind up with. Yeah, okay. If that's agreeable to the mover.
That's fine, thank you.
Any further debate? Seeing none, I'll ask the mover to close.
I'll simply call the question.
Question's been called, okay? All in favor? Are any opposed? Okay, I see none. So now, we're back to the main motion as amended. We have 2 suggestions from Mayor Snodgrass. I'm going to say those tend to be political in nature rather than administrative, and we could deal with those separately. So if we can, and if councillors feel differently, so one of them was to issue a stop work order right away. So I think that's a little different than the water quality issues that we have at the moment. That might be a separate issue. And the second one was to request so stop work orders for all existing operations, and request a full stop on any and all of the Old Man watershed allocation amendments pending. So that's the watershed allocation amendment. So I think we could deal with those 2 separately, if that's okay with council. If not, if somebody wants to add them as amendments, I'm open to that as well. Okay, we'll go and debate the main motion as amended.
Sorry, Your Worship, my hand was up.
Okay, Councillor Carlson.
Sorry, thank you, Mayor Spearman. I actually wouldn't mind adding in those unless there's thought of council that it's
okay.
It's not following the same amendment, or it's materially changing the original amendment, because I know our original amendment did speak almost exclusively about water.
Okay.
So I'd look for council's ruling on that, but I wouldn't mind getting those amendments in there.
Okay, I'll treat you as the mover.
Okay, thank you.
You're the mover, and so we might deal first with the water allocation rights. Is there a seconder?
I'll second that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll second her.
Yeah. Seconded by Councillor Miyashiro. Okay, so if I can just see that motion again, City Clerk. And I wonder if we can have it put up on the screen. So the next amendment is to request a full stop on any and all of the Old Man Watershed allocation amendments. So that's Old Man Watershed water allocation amendments pending. Yeah. Request a full stop on any and all of the Old Man Watershed water allocation amendments pending public consultation on a new Alberta coal policy and comprehensive review of the potential watershed impacts on the Old Man Basin. Okay. On all, yeah. Okay, moved by Councillor Carlson, seconded by Councillor Miyashiro. Questions on this amendment? Councillor Morrow?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, just again to make sure that I know what's going on here. So this actual amendment that I see on the screen now, this is, we're following up on the request of the Mayor Snodgrass. Is that what this is?
He's suggested two issues that we might consider today, yes, and this is one of them.
Okay, so, but this one is one and there's the second one. I'm assuming that his council passed the resolution with this wording in their resolution?
I don't think so. I don't think the town of High River gets their water from the Old Man Watershed.
Okay, so what we're basically doing is taking his wording or his suggestion, and now we're going to add them into our official business resolution 6.1.
Is
that what we're doing?
Yes, Councillor Carlson has proposed that, and it's been seconded by Councillor Miyashiro.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
No, but I think for Councilor Morrow, though, Mayor Snodgrass did ask, and their council did pass that all coal exploration be immediately ceased on the eastern slopes of Alberta, and cease issuance of any new exploration permits on the eastern slopes until public consultation has taken place. So it's similar, Councilor Morrow. It's not exactly the same.
So
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
That's the second one. The one we're dealing with is with the water rights.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I guess where I'm sensing a little bit of confusion, if this is their resolution or their intent, and he's going around as he did today, to make a presentation to our council, and I'm sure he's probably making presentation to other councils to support them, then I would rather keep it separate. I know it's already on the table. I know it's already been seconded, but why are we taking some other municipality's resolution and adding it into the amendment? If we're going to do that, then I would really think that we should respectfully have that we are in support of the town of, like we normally do. So that's kind of why I'm asking the questions that I'm asking. But if nobody else feels that way, then proceed.
In his comments today, Mayor Snodgrass said, while the Old Man River doesn't relate to High River, this is something the city of Lethbridge might consider.
Thank you. And if I can, Your Worship, I believe that's what his intent was, that we are the ones impacted by this. There are allocation amendments given to the coal companies. My understanding is that these allocations have been designated without any public consultation. It just, to me, that just it's a slap in the face. Those of us who want water allocations have a fairly strict process to go through. And this sort of seemed to me to circumvent that process. And I think the government probably has the right, but I think Albertans, especially in the Old Man watershed basin, need to have their say. We've all said it 100 times now. I think Councillor Crowson was the first. Water is life. Our agriculture depends on it. Our citizens depend on it. So I just don't like seeing these allocations being decided when we know that I believe the allocations were already at full. So I think this just makes sense to just say, hey, while we're doing all this, stop allocating the water allocations as well.
And once again, thank you for that, Councillor Carlson. We haven't had any discussion with our MLA, once again. So here we have, and I mean this with total respect, we have a mayor that has nothing to do with the Old Man that made a presentation and is telling us what we should do, and we're going to do it. Have we as a council ever gone to any other municipality and suggested and told them that they should pass a resolution where we have no business in doing that? I understand what you're trying to do here, but have we had an opportunity, and do we know for a fact what's going on and that this is that we need this resolution?
Yes.
Like,
the information's been publicly reported that water allocations have already been made and designations. So that information is publicly available.
And the province, if I remember, I thought that they corrected that, and with their decision, that was part of what they, I guess, rescinded or changed, and so that's.
I'm not aware of that. They simply reinstated the 1976 coal policy, but there was no public comment about reversing any water allocations that might have been designated.
Thank you.
Acting Mayor Higgin.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. Question I have is that I know this kind of directly deals with us, as you'd indicated, that's where we get our water. I'd like this to be, I know we've got it first and seconded, but it should be across Alberta. We should be supporting those that other potential watersheds. And so we've got the Old Man River. Is it just all watershed water allocation amendments? Why would we hold on just ours? To me, it looks like we're not supporting the rest of the other communities out there that we should be hopping up with them as well, and we're just doing Old Man. So I'm just curious to know why we just are doing ours and are not supporting others.
I guess Councillor Carlson proposed this. My thinking is that we're dealing with what affects the city of Lethbridge in this resolution, rather than province-wide, but we could add wording in to say, and other river systems, if you chose to suggest an amendment to this. So,
because we are doing Lethbridge, obviously it affects us, but just a previous resolution, we're talking about a provincial initiative that we just finished passing. So I would like to support our colleagues in other communities and not just have ours. So I don't know if there's a friendly in there, or if you just want to just support ours, Councillor Carlson.
Actually, Councillor Higgin, or Acting Mayor Higgin, thank you for that. Except I'm not aware that there are other watersheds and other allocations been made. This is the one that I've researched and looked into. I know the allocations and I know the system. So that's why I'm bringing this forward. I don't know of any others. Do you?
Well, I think it would be a pretty broad statement to be able to put all watershed allocation amendments pending coal. So if there is something that's coming, or if there already is, it's going to cover it completely.
So that's up to the mover, or Councillor Higgin. You're free to make an amendment that would say something along the lines of all watershed allocations, including those in the Old Man River.
I would like to make that amendment, please.
You have a seconder. Seconded by Councillor Parker.
I can just accept that. It still gets my intent in, and may broaden to others that I'm not aware of.
Hey, Councillor Carlson is saying he'll accept that as a friendly amendment. Does any member of council object to that? If there are no objections, City Clerk, do we have to vote on it? No. Okay. So review all potential all watershed water allocation amendments, including those in the Old Man watershed, is the revised wording. And there are no objections. So we're back to the amendment. Councillor Crowson?
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. I just want to add a bit to the conversation here. Under the Water Act, we actually have water allocations. There's 11,000 acre feet that's reserved each year in the Old Man River. The most of that, 9,000 acre feet, is for irrigation, and then there's some for industrial and some for everything else, which includes the city of Lethbridge. And this is, how much, of course, in a good year, if we get a snowpack, thank heavens we finally got some snow, we'll see how much we actually end up getting this year, but that's how much there is in total. And so if something like a coal company got some of that allocation, which at this point Benga is looking for the Grassy Mountain project, they're looking for a huge amount of it, that is actually stuff that was originally set aside for industry. So if we do not ask them to look at the water allocation carefully, we may be limiting the industrial growth of Lethbridge in the future because industry might not be able to get water and the water allocation that they need in Lethbridge and in the region around this. And so this is a major concern. So when I talked earlier about this, about quality and quantity, this is actually what I was referring to. It is this watershed water allocation. Mayor Snodgrass gave it a much better format. He actually helped us to write it out when he brought this forward. But this is absolutely essential when we're talking about water quantity. And so I hope my colleagues support this because this is one of the major parts of this is, again, if we limit the industrial growth of Lethbridge because we can't get the water, we'll be kicking ourselves in the future.
Thank you. I'll take that as your opening for debate. Any other debate? I see none. Councillor Crowson, would you like to close?
It's not my motion. I just had a lot to say on it.
Oh, it's Councillor Carlson. I'm sorry. Sorry. Councillor.
Right, Your Worship. I believe Belinda was reading my notes anyways. She spoke very plainly and bluntly. Lethbridge is poised to expand our agribusiness here. We depend on not just the quality, but also the quantity of water. And I just think the allocation process needs to be open and fair and include public consultation. I don't think it should just be at the whim of who's ever the minister in charge at the time. So I hope my colleagues will support this. It goes to support Lethbridge and our economy, but also anyone who's on the Old Man basin in the watershed. But now we've expanded it to any watershed. So I appreciate that.
Okay, I'll take that as your opening. And Councillor Crowson has already debated. Anybody else like to debate? Acting Mayor Higgin.
Sorry, you have a passionate irrigation farmer's daughter here. I'm going to fight for water.
Okay. Acting Mayor Higgin.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman, and thank you to the mover for allowing that friendly amendment to include all water within our province, and so I will gladly support this resolution.
Thank you. I see the wisdom of this as well. I can see this applying to other rivers in the area as well as across the province. So the Waterton River, other rivers may also be affected. So St. Mary's River, so and naturally rivers north. So I too will support the amendment.
Unless there's anything further, I'll call for the vote.
Question's been called. All in favor? Are any opposed? There are none. Okay, the next one is suggestion is to support stop work orders for all existing exploration. So while the coal policy was rescinded yesterday, in between the time that the coal policy was ceased to be in effect and when it was reinstated yesterday, I believe there were 6 applications for exploration which have gone forward. And the minister was clear that those 6 applications are not affected going forward by the reinstatement of the 1976 coal policy. So, Councillor Carlson, are you moving this amendment as well?
I would like to.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder?
I will.
Councillor Miyashiro. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. This goes to support our colleagues in High River. Mayor Snodgrass talked about it. The problem is, yes, we appreciate that the coal policy has been reinstated, but there was the window where it was opened and some leases or some work has begun. I think until we iron this out, I think it's incumbent on us to support our colleagues that are actually most affected in that neighborhood, of saying, let's stop here. We don't know what's going to transpire through this process, but until that happens, we need to stop the existing exploration and damage that's being created now. So I hope my colleagues would support this.
Okay. Is there any questions? Okay, I see no questions. We'll move on to debate.
I've opened, Your Worship, unless there's any further debate.
Okay.
If there's none, I'll just call the question.
Any debate on this motion? Councillor Higgin has just returned. Okay. Councillor Parker is out of the room. Okay. Question's been called. Is all in favor? Okay, Councillor Parker is also in favor. Any opposed?
The last amendment, right? On this one.
Okay. Okay, that amendment carries. So now we're back to the main motion as amended.
Your Worship,
Yes.
Carlson here. Sorry, I had another amendment if I can, and I'd just like to throw this out there for consideration, because I did appreciate Councillor Morrow's discussion around we need to have a discussion with our MLAs and MP. So I believe, as I said, it's not a binary choice. I think we can do both.
Right.
And so I'm wondering if we could entertain something further, be it resolved that Council invite MLAs Newdorf and Phillips, as well as MP Harder, to discuss this issue with Council. And I'm hoping that could be in public, but
Sure. So do you want that as part of, you want it as an amendment and not as a separate motion?
I just think it'll save time if we just add, I think that was Council Morrow's intent, to get some discussion going on. And so I'm hoping that it can just be a further be it resolved to this.
Okay.
Unless it's...
I assume Councillor Morrow will second this? This was his idea? Councillor
Yes.
Morrow,
Can
are
we
you the
just add-
seconder?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Carlson, are you okay with adding that we'll also send them a copy of the letter if it passes? Because we haven't included that in the, anywhere yet in this resolution, so they know what we're talking about.
I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, we always send our MLAs and MPs copies of letters routinely. Yeah.
Councillor Croson, you're fine with that being implicit rather than explicit?
I'm fine. I just like open communication wherever possible.
100%.
Okay, so that has been added as an amendment. And seconded by Councillor Morrow. Any discussion, any questions? Any debate?
Just that I think it's a good move to have that good discussion with our MLAs and our MP.
Okay, thank you. Take that as your opening. There's no further debate. All in favor? Any opposed? There are none. Thank you. So now we're back to the main motion as amended. Councillor Miyashiro, Councillor Croson, you have sponsored this motion. It's been amended. It's back to the movers.
Well, Mayor Spearman, thank you very much, and thank you to my colleagues for entertaining the amendments and making this a more wholesome resolution. It's really contingent upon us to do whatever we can to protect our environment, protect our water source. We've heard from our own staff who sit on the Old Man Watershed Council that the real threat of toxins getting into our water stream or our water system are real, and we need to protect that at all costs, as well as the environmental damage to the eastern slopes. So I hope everyone supports this in its entirety, and that we get the message to the provincial government that we'd like this more thorough review of everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Croson?
I'll say for close, thank you.
Okay. Any other councillors like to comment before Councillor Croson closes? I'd like to thank my colleagues. I think we have a better resolution as a result of the contribution of all. And I think it's important to express the concerns on behalf of our community. Has been stated many times throughout this debate. I think our minds are open. We want to receive information, and we want to be part of an extensive consultation process. And we've asked for an extensive consultation process that's transparent and where all the information is shared freely. So thank you for those who have brought forward this resolution, and I think I'll be proud to write a letter to the provincial government with the copies to those who have been named, and look forward to progress on this issue going forward. Councillor Croson?
Thank you. Yes, thank you everyone for the amendments. I think this is a much better resolution than we first drafted and brought forward, and there's certainly been some changes. About a month ago, I drove out to the farm, my parents' farm, which is of course northeast of Lethbridge. And driving out there, the amount of land that had blown this winter and how dry it was just another reminder to me that we are an irrigation center, that without water, we are a very dry place. And we have built this entire economy around agriculture, around irrigation, around agri-foods. And it is essential to our community, our city, our region, that that water source is maintained, that the reputation of that water is maintained, and that we do everything we can to ensure both the quality and the quantity of that water is sufficient for the residents of Lethbridge, for the industry, for agriculture, for all those needs that we have, and that we try to balance all of those needs. And this is what this resolution is about. This resolution is about working with the province to ensure that going ahead, we can proudly look at the Oban River and know that the water is safe. It is safe for fish and the aquatic life. It is safe for the plants. It is safe for the people. And that we as a council and as a community have done everything we can to protect it to the best of our ability. And so I would ask my colleagues to support this, because we don't survive without water as people and as a region, and this is necessary. So with that, I'll call the question.
Question has been called. All in favor? Are any opposed? That resolution is unanimous. Thank you all very much. Thank you. It's now roughly 3:38. We've been meeting for about 2 hours. Is anybody interested in a break? I see one person nodding their heads. Okay.
Okay, well, I'm going to go whether you give one or not. So
Okay,
thanks.
we'll take a 12-minute break and reconvene at 10 to 4. Okay, thank you. Resume the city council meeting, and we'll go on to 6.2. I have a resolution from Councillor Kaufman. Residential aprons. Whereas City Council received a presentation from Build Lethbridge regarding opportunities to create efficiencies in new construction, and whereas the original concerns regarding driveway aprons no longer exist, and whereas home builders are responsible for the cost and quality of the apron as well as meeting the expectations of home buyers, and whereas if builders create the apron, there are cost, time, and quality control benefits to both the builder and the future homeowner, and whereas home builders and their contractors can address the city's concerns of liability through insurance requirements and the existing permitting process, therefore be it resolved that City Council authorize the city manager to make the necessary changes to allow for home builders to pour aprons in new residential developments, and further be it resolved that the application process be incorporated into the city's existing e-apply system without creating additional applications or point of contact or expense over the existing process. And further be it resolved that City Council direct the city manager to draft any necessary amendments to bylaw 3446, the streets bylaw, to achieve this outcome. Councillor Kaufman.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. It might be wise to entertain questions first.
Okay, are there any questions? Councillor Carlson.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. Thank you, Councillor Kaufman, for bringing this forward. Through you, your worship, to city manager or designate, I believe I understood the discussion that we had. I believe it was Ms. Mearns in front of us, and the outcomes that we're hoping to be achieved of efficiencies. I just want to ensure, because I think we discussed it in the meeting we had, but I just want to ensure that there are no negative consequences that I've missed on doing this, because I think in my mind it makes sense. It's speedier, cheaper, faster, etc. But I just want to ensure that I haven't missed anything from an administrative point of view.
Ask Mr. Hawkins to address that, please.
Yeah, the Councillor Carlson, we're satisfied that some modest amendments to the street bylaw will facilitate this as an option to the home builders and the individual lot builders without any additional risk or any concerns on our part. There's already a provision for proof of insurance and those kinds of things, and there is some oversight because this is a separated sidewalk where there's an apron on city property, and so there'll be some inspections that are associated with that to make sure that we minimize any risks and we deal with any quality assurance concerns. So yeah, we're satisfied this is a reasonable approach, and it doesn't take away a builder's option to rely on our contract if they so choose, but it gives them that option to do things differently or for themselves if they choose as well.
Thank you. Appreciate that. That was my recollection of this discussion, but I just wanted to have it confirmed. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Any further questions? Okay, there are none. We'll now move on to debate. Councillor Kaufman.
Thank you, Mr. Spearman. Actually, I do have a question for the city manager designate. As was identified in the previous answer, this actually creates some opportunity for us to accomplish some additional work in the community, because if we're not using our contract resources on this, we've freed up that labor. Are there other things that we can be doing then through our contract? I know that we're doing curb cuts. I know that we are doing some sidewalk replacement. Do things of that nature then, do we get to speed up that opportunity by enacting something like this?
I think that's true, Councillor Kaufman. It's the same contractor, which we usually hire on a competitive basis annually, is also dedicated to other city sidewalk rehab work and, as you say, curb cuts and para ramps and those kinds of things. If there's a reduction here, it provides us to be more responsive to some of those other program needs that we have on an annual basis. So yeah, there is an upside for us as well.
Excellent, thank you. Thank you, Mayor Spearman. Hearing that, and members of council recalling that Bill did a presentation to Recovery Lethbridge probably back last summer, I believe. One of the requests that came out of that was a way of finding efficient processes for our local building community. And this has certainly been one that they can explore. As we heard from Mr. Hawkins earlier, this is a win-win for everybody. So I'd ask council to support the motion.
Okay. Any debate? Question's been called. All in favor? Are any opposed? I see none. We have one more official business resolution before we go to the public hearing. It's basically a housekeeping item, bylaw 6261 for 1303 Mayor McGrath Drive South, brought forward by Deputy Mayor Miyashiro. Whereas first reading was given to bylaw 6261 at the January 12, 2021 council meeting, and whereas a public hearing for bylaw 6261 was scheduled for February the 9th, 2021, and whereas the applicant has submitted a written notice on January the 28th, 2021 that they have withdrawn their zoning application or their rezoning application, therefore be it resolved that bylaw 6261, land use bylaw amendment regarding 1303 Mayor McGrath Drive South be abandoned. Deputy Mayor Miyashiro.
Thank you very much, Mayor Spearman. And you're right, this is a housekeeping item. We just wanted the public to have note that this bylaw amendment rezoning is not going through.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from council? I see none.
Councillor Morrow.
Councillor Morrow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess my question is to the city clerk, if I may. City clerk, I know that there was a lot of emails and letters and all that sort of stuff received on this. Just curious, what happens to those? Are they kept? That should this happen again, or should this come forward in a month or 2 or 6 or whatever? What happens to all those emails that the city clerk's office and that council has received?
Thanks for the question, Councillor Morrow. Yes, they are kept for the council corporate record. They do form part of council's records, even though this item wasn't heard, and they will be kept.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Any debate? All in favor? Any opposed? There are none. Thank you. We'll now move to the public hearing. We'll adjourn to the public hearing. Public hearing will start as soon as we're notified by Mr. Westerson.
Do we need a new login, or are we good?
Nope, not this time.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yep.
It's Joe. I just want to, if I can, I've been sitting here at home, as most of us are at these meetings, but I have to say that today you kind of remind me of a play-by-play announcer, and I think you're doing a heck of a job in trying to, I'm going to use a hockey lingo if I can, stick handle the puck the way you have. I think you're doing a great job, so thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. Maybe I'll stick around after all.
I'm not sure you actually asked for that.
Okay, we're ready to move to the public hearing. Public hearing notes. Do you have public hearing notes? Sorry. Yeah, sorry. Okay. Thank you. Bylaw 6264, public hearing talking points. I call to order the public hearing for Bylaw 6264, Land Use Amendment Re 482, 484, 486, 490, 492, 494, 496, 500, 504, 508, 512, 514, 516, 520, and 522 Cooley Creek Boulevard South, Southgate. The procedure for this hearing will be, we will begin by calling upon Mr. Tyson Boylan, Senior Community Planner, to provide the background to the case. Those else who wish to speak on this bylaw will then be called upon. We will then ask 3 times if there is anybody else who wishes to make a presentation. City Council will then have the opportunity to ask questions of any of the presenters. The hearing will then be closed. Consideration of second and third reading will be made by City Council immediately following the public hearing. I now call upon Mr. Boylan to provide the background to the case. Mr. Boylan?
Thank you, Your Worship and members of the council. This is bylaw 6264. It's a proposed land use bylaw amendment to a site on Cooley Creek Boulevard within Southgate. Sorry, we don't have the slide up yet. Is the slide up yet? Oh, there we go. Oh, it's over there. Okay. My presentation will follow the format that is shown above, ending with our department's recommendation to City Council. Next slide, please. The applicant for this amendment is Associated Engineering, who are here today and can answer questions. They are acting on behalf of Landsol Limited and the other existing owners and residents on the site. The applicant wishes to rezone an existing parcel to R75 to construct a multi-unit residential development at a lower density than is allowed under the current R150 land use district. The proposed RM district will be applied to the existing fourplexes on the site so that they are in compliance with the new site development plan and also with the land use bylaw. Slide. So the application is in the far south of the city, shown as the red star above. And as you can see on this more detailed map shown in green, the site is located within the residential portion of Southgate, behind the Mammograth Drive commercial development area. Next slide. Next slide, please. The amendment area is outlined in green here once again, and this air photo is from 2019, but nothing has changed since this time. And as you can see, the site is currently composed of 2 fourplex buildings that were developed over the years 2012 and 2013, and a vacant portion that has not yet been developed. The site is at the intersection of Southgate Boulevard and of Cooley Creek Boulevard, and it is located immediately to the east of the Lowe's Home Improvement Store. To the north is another multi-family development, and to the south are single detached homes. So this photo is taken on the ground, and it's taken looking northwest at the fourplexes that currently exist along Cooley Creek Boulevard and are proposed to be rezoned to RM. This photo is taken looking northwest across the parcel in question from Southgate Boulevard at the site that is proposed to be rezoned to R75. And the vacant area here is front and center with Lowe's in the background and the existing fourplexes in the driveway that are on the far right of this image. So listed here are the relevant planning documents to this proposed rezoning. And I should point out at this time that the Southgate Outline Plan was recently amended on December 8th by MPC. The purpose of this outline plan amendment was to change the land use concept in it to allow for this rezoning and this proposed development to occur. So this is the Southgate area structure plan from 2004 originally. The blue area here corresponds to the amendment area, which was originally shown as a high-density residential site in the Southgate ASP. However, this plan also states that that high-density residential sites, as shown here, are conceptual and will be confirmed or revised at the outline plan stage. So this brings us to the outline plan concept map from the recently amended Southgate outline plan. In the previous version of this outline plan, this was shown for being high-density residential, but the recent amendment to this outline plan changed the subject site to medium-density residential. And this is shown as red on this map. So this shows the existing and the proposed land use districts. The map on the left shows the existing R150 district that was approved by council in 2008. The R150 district allows for apartments and townhouses at a density of 76 to 150 units per hectare. The original intention at this time was to construct 2 fourplexes and 4 apartment towers, totaling 174 units on the site. However, due to market conditions, only the fourplexes were ever constructed, which leaves us to where we are at today. The map on the right shows the proposed R75 and the RM land use districts. And the proposed R75 district will allow the applicant to construct single-story, fourplex-style senior citizens apartments on the undeveloped portion of the site at a lower density of only 26 to 75 units per hectare, which best accommodates the size and the scale of the applicant's proposal. The proposed RM district is needed here for the existing fourplexes, as these have already been built at a density of only 16 units per hectare. So for evaluation and analysis, the application was evaluated in terms of different planning documents, including the South Saskatchewan Regional Plan and the MDP, and it fulfills these. In terms of the governing ASP and the recently amended outline plan, the proposed rezoning is also in compliance with the land use that is described within these plans. City staff have also confirmed that the intended development could be accommodated in the context of the neighborhood here. And the municipal housing strategy also identified building new, medium, and high-density housing options as one way to help increase the diversity of housing stock in the city and to provide for barrier-free units for senior citizens. So for notification, mailouts are sent out to the owners of the parcel shown on the green hatched areas above. Ads also appeared on the Herald and on the city's website. And the applicant also conducted public consultation as part of the outline plan amendment in the fall. And I received no inquiries from the public at this time for the rezoning. So in conclusion, bylaw 6264 is compliant with all existing statutory and approved plans for the area. And it is our recommendation that City Council approve bylaw 6264. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Boylan. Are there any members of the public that wish to make a presentation on this matter? And yes, please go ahead. Please introduce yourself.
Your Worship, members of City Council, my name is Bud Hogwide, and I'm the project manager for this site and representing the existing owners. The rezoning of this site from the R150 to R75 gives us a great opportunity to provide some housing in South Lethbridge for some seniors. I have with me today Robin James from Lethbridge Housing, who can answer questions relative to that. And I'll be here to answer any other questions that council may have. Thank you.
Pleasure to see you, Mr. Hogewide and Ms. James. Thank you for attending today. Are there any other members of the public that wish to make a presentation on this matter? And for a third and final time, are there any other members of the public that wish to make a presentation on this matter? Hearing no other presenters, it is now time for City Council to ask questions of the presenters. Excuse me. Questions from Council. Okay, are there no questions from Council? Not sure who should answer this question. I think this is the project that received provincial funding just a little while back. Is that correct? Ms. James?
Yes, Mayor, it is. The 3.45 million was received.
Good. And when would this project begin if it's approved today?
We're just waiting for the CMHC funding to be put in place and the ground not to be frozen, and we'll get started. We hope to have it finished within the 2021 year.
Well, construction will begin and hopefully be completed this year, so a boost to the local economy as well as providing additional housing for seniors. Yep.
That's correct.
Thank you. Any other questions from Council? Councillor Kaufman.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. Perhaps Mr. Boyland, R75, that's equivalent to the zoning at the Lydia's, correct?
Not entirely sure. It's close to it, if not I think it is, but I'm not entirely 100% sure.
Okay, thank you. If I can then to Ms. James, is it comparable to what's at the Lydia's, or is it going to be something entirely different? Sorry, the Lydia's are on Cooley Springs, the end of Cooley Springs Road down from San Therese, and their apartment style townhouse complex. I just wanted to get an idea of the type of structure that would be going there.
So the type of structure they will be is a fourplex type structure, slab on grade. Half will be handicapped accessible, the other half will not be. And they will also be allowed to have a pet to help alleviate some social anxieties, and they all have front doors, so everyone will be able to come and go as they please. So our seniors won't be so restricted during these COVID times.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. James. Thank you, Ms. Spearman.
Any other questions from council? Which JC is that? Is that Councillor Carlson?
Councillor Kaufman.
Okay, yeah, okay. I see none. If there's no further questions from council, this public hearing is now closed. The matter may be decided later this afternoon following the public hearing. We'll now go back to the public council meeting.
Chris,
Yes.
I was keen to see how Bonnie was going to answer that. Which JC is that? Was she going to say the nice one or the mean one? How was she?
No, there was no implied judgment. It's just looking at the hands. There's a hand up on the screen behind me, and there's two circles with JC in them. I have no idea who's asking the question.
I understood. I just wanted to see what she was going to use. I was hoping the handsome, well-groomed one. I was hoping.
Okay. So I'm just going to get back to my agenda.
Did we need a moment of silence for the Kansas City Chiefs today? Just wondering. Anyone?
Ouch.
Their quarterback has turf toe or something.
Too soon? Sorry.
Nice, Mark.
I was watching golf replays that day. Sorry.
Yeah, when a football game is on, it's time for me to do writing because there's no good TV on that day.
Oh, I could share my golf subscription with you, Belinda.
Okay, we're
No,
moving.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, we're back to the regular council meeting. We're moving to bylaws for second and third reading. I'm going to assume this bylaw is being proposed by Acting Mayor Higgin. Bylaw 6264, Land Use Amendment, re 482, 484, 486, 490, 492, 494, 496, 500, 504, 508, 512, 514, 516, 520, and 522 Cooley Creek Boulevard South, Southgate. For second reading, be it resolved that bylaw 6264, Land Use Bylaw, re 482, 484, 486, 490, 492, 494, and 496, 500, 504, 508, 512, 514, 516, 520, and 522 Cooley Creek Boulevard South, Southgate be given second reading. Acting Mayor Higgin.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. If I could take a comment from my colleague to the left. We've heard this a long time ago, so I hope everybody can recall this conversation regarding this particular bylaw amendment. And I'm not sure if there's any questions. I don't have a lot to add to it. I think this is a fantastic project. It fits what we are currently needing in our community, and I'm looking forward to supporting this project.
Thank you. Councillor Parker?
Thank you very much. And just to echo the comments of my colleague, I think this is a great project. It's good to see you in this economic times that we're doing more and more development, and this is just great. It fills a need in our community, which I think is very key, and I will be supporting this 100%.
Thank you. JC, do you have any questions? Okay. All right, I see no further questions. Back to the mover. Oh, sorry. Rob?
Oh, I thought we were in
Councillor Mashiro?
debate. Were we in debate?
Oh, you would like debate?
Well, no, Councilor Parker just did debate. He didn't ask any questions, so I thought we just skipped over questions. I'm in debate, so whatever.
Okay,
Whenever
well,
you want to call me.
Yep, well, if Councillor Parker was in debate, and you go ahead, have debate.
So much for stick handling. I appreciate Lethbridge Housing bringing this forward. It's great to see some affordable housing for seniors being developed in our community, and I wholeheartedly support this this amendment.
Thank you. Anybody else like to debate? Thank you. I agree with all that's been said previously. I'll ask Councillor Higgin to close.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. Again, thank you for the questions, all of those multitude of questions and debate. Again, to reiterate the importance of having business throughout these times here, this is great, and especially looking at the different jobs that can be created throughout this time. Not only the end result of having this housing available for those seniors in our community, but also the economic impact as far as getting some of those trades back to work, and so for that, I would ask for council support.
Okay, question has been called. All in favor? Are there any opposed? There are none. It's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, there are inquiries. There were no written inquiries.
Third reading, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Third reading. I didn't want to read them all again, but here we go. Be it resolved, bylaw 6264, land use bylaw amendment re 482, 484, 486, 490, 492, 494, 496, 500, 504, 508, 512, 514, 516, 520, and 522 Cooley Creek Boulevard South, Southgate be given third reading, and the mayor and the city clerk be authorized to sign and seal the same. Acting Mayor Higgin.
Question.
Question's been called. All in favor? Any opposed? There are none. Thank you. Okay, inquiries. There were no submitted written inquiries prior to the meeting. Council updates. Are there any council updates?
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, it's Joe. I do have an inquiry. I'm sorry. May I?
The procedure is the inquiry has to be submitted in writing prior to the meeting. That was a procedure we approved in the last couple of months.
Actually, update, if he does it in person, he has to submit it in writing after the fact. So it can be done in person, but then he has to submit it so it's part of the record.
Okay.
Actually, no, that's okay. I'm trying to use it as an inquiry, but it was also probably more of a bouquet, but that's fine. That's okay. Process is there. Thank you for considering.
Okay. Councillor Parker?
Mine's not inquiries, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, next is council updates. Okay, Councillor Parker?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just want to remind members of the community and members of council as well is this Thursday, the Community Safety Standing Committee, Policy Committee, which I chair, will be having a meeting in regards to discussion on bylaw 6239, which was a resolution that was passed in regards to referring this being the mass bylaw, which was passed by Councillor Miyashiro, I do believe, in the last meeting in December. So we are having that meeting, on Thursday at 1:30. And people have an opportunity to, the technology is to phone in, use Teams, or if need be, come to City Hall in a properly safe manner, of course, following proper protocol. And I do believe our city clerk's has done an excellent job in helping facilitate. We have numerous letters, submissions so far, but I will be chairing the meeting, but I just want to make sure the community knows that's what's going to be happening this Thursday at City Hall. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other councillor updates? Councillor Carlson?
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. Just further to Councillor Parker's reminder about Thursday, can we all be sent the link to that? I know council, all members of council are welcome to attend. I'm not sure if everyone is going to attend, but if we could be sent the link out ahead of time, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. So noted. The link will be sent out. Any other council updates? I see none. Okay, we now have to go back into in camera. So can I have a motion to go into in camera? So moved by Councillor Parker. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, we will now go in camera.